Good day to everyone. Today we're going to talk about thermal drones in the wild. I'm going to use Autel drones and how they're, specifically thermal, are advancing wildlife and land management. Quick bit about me: I've been in the aviation industry, software, aircraft sales, various safety and operations role, and construction. And I'm also an active 107 pilot. Specific things I did were photogrammetry and LiDAR work for mining, mostly, and landfills. Just about Multi-Copter Warehouse. If you don't know us, we pretty much sell drones, payloads. We provide training, support, and service, hopefully giving you the best experience in the industry. Why thermal? Why now? So thermal has a lot of benefits. 24/7 visibility. Obviously, at night it works for safety and non-invasive observation. So for today, we're talking wildlife, for example, and some other applications. Some of the older tools obviously have limited coverage. They're expensive, and safety risk, obviously, for wildlife. Walking around in a field with predators, for example, is a safety risk. Thermal detects heat signatures, not visible to your eye, obviously. Like I said earlier, darkness, fog, and smoke, and dense vegetation works really well. So we'll move on to the next slide here. But I guess, I did some flying this morning, and it was kind of amazes me that even at 300 or 400 feet, the quality nowadays that these drones can give you. So, some of the advanced visibility, smoke, fog, darkness, search and rescue. We're hearing in the news all the time about people getting rescued or finding criminals is another way. For infrastructure inspection like solar, detecting heat loss, agricultural monitoring, seeing irrigation issues or plant stress, wildlife detection, and, allowing you to make better decisions. So basically, the way the imaging works on a drone is pretty obvious. Just a thermal camera can read temperatures, and you can dial in on the settings of most thermal drones. If you want to pick out a squelch or dial in a specific temperature range, you can do that. So how do they work? They detect infrared radiation, and, again, allowing you to fly in the dark, or, low visibility, giving you a real-time thermal overlay. And again, some of this is redundant, but one of the bigger values is being able to integrate that data with GIS mapping platforms, or, for example, FLIR Tools is a software platform that allows you to work with thermal data. And, a lightweight and portable, depending on the drone. We're talking Autel today. The Alpha is the bigger guy. It's a pretty heavy drone, which has a better camera in some respects, but also the 640T that we're going to look at is very portable. So who's this for? Nighttime livestock type operations, to maybe patrol the borderlines of ranches. If you have fences, or you're trying to see where wildlife might be located, or you have animals that could be potentially hurt, that type of deal. Migration tracking, habitat assessment and documentation, obviously public safety, missing persons, and fire risk analysis. I saw a really neat video of a fire department using thermal for after the fire's kind of put out. They're not sure. They can actually fly over the building and see if there's hot spots. So that's a safety thing too, that they're not going back up in the roof of somewhere, and you can actually see those hot spots, not through the roof, but on the roof. And then, agencies and institutions. Tracking nocturnal species without disturbance. So I was tracking some deer this morning, And I don't think they really noticed until I got really close or if you descend. So that's a big thing. Counting herds, being able to see in dense brush is really also something that always kind of blows me away. The ability for that to show you. I guess for conservation planning is another big one that some of the wildlife management organizations use it for. Let me see here. So fire, again, hot spots, controlled burn planning and monitoring, human heat signatures, obviously, and low visibility, and searching areas faster and safer. Another thing that's really cool, especially with Autel, they have some neat features. I won't go into them all, but you can basically pinpoint on the screen the GPS coordinates. So that can also kind of funnel into the mapping stuff. So if you're doing a big site, maybe specifically animals, you could actually write down or radio the GPS lat long, and someone on the ground could plug it into their phone and use like Google Maps just to take you there. So geotagging, it's the same thing as you can see here. It's like your iPhone, for example. It knows where those photos were taken. Basically, all the drones, at least all the Autels, do that geotagging. And a lot of the other brands do too. If you are looking at other brands, obviously something you want to check into, because that can be brought into various softwares. You can also just right click an image when it's on your computer and just hit info or like get info on a Mac or, the image properties, and you'll actually see the GPS coordinates. So moving on. So Autel drones do support automated mapping flights, and you can build KML files, or you can just build the mission on the controller. If you ever want help with that, you can let me know or hit us up. We'll show you. Another advantage, I have a customer in Texas that's got a ranch. He's got a couple ranches, and he pretty much flies the same path, so his flights are saved. Basically, shows up, hits start, it manually flies video or takes photos, and he can kind of sit there and monitor. Again, terrain changes, following animal trails, vegetation growth. I've heard of, hunters, sometimes if you're hunting and you want to follow a blood trail, if it's still, warm enough, I guess, that you would actually be able to see that. So that's pretty much, I don't want to go over some of these points are a little redundant, and I apologize, but, doing patrol or predator detection, whether it's coyotes, hogs, or other threats, and you can see their thermal signature, and really kind of improve threat detection and livestock safety. So this is just an Autel 640T example of kind of what it would look like overlaid with the, a daytime photo versus the night vision view or the thermal view. So I want to talk about three of Autel's thermal drones. The Evo Max 4T has a 4-sensor payload, a wide view, a zoom, and the 640 by 512, and it also has a laser rangefinder. The obstacle avoidance on Autel stuff is really good. I guess if I wanted to bring up other competitors, it's up there with probably one of the better obstacle avoidance. The AI tracking allows you to lock in on a subject. So I didn't try it on Autel, I got to admit, with the thermal, but I'm pretty sure it does work. I have. But basically allows AI to follow. So if you were tracking a horse, for example, you can actually turn that on. AI will track it and follow it. So you're not having to chase the thing with the drone. The Evo Max has a good flight time. The Alpha is the bigger one. I have a picture of these guys. We'll show you in a minute. Swappable payloads is a big one. It's more comparable. For example, like the DJI M30T. It's built for complex inspections. It also has AI recognition and GIS integration. The Evo Light 640T is compact and affordable. I actually have one here. It's awesome because it's pretty light, very compact, comes with an awesome case, hard case, and then the controllers on the Autels are really nice. They just have a good layout, and a great screen. There's some videos online if you want to look them up. I watched one where there's a rare deer was missing on a private ranch and needed recovery before shedding its antlers. So, obviously tracking on the ground was hard, and they used an Autel drone. If you just search Autel drones thermal, you can get some good field examples, and they obviously found the deer and saved time and all that good stuff. So all these three drones, kind of the same things they have in common is they're 640 by 512, and I think that's kind of the standard for most thermal drones. Um, as far as the visual and thermal fusion, being able to do, fusing those two views, right? You may do like a side by side view. Autel's really good about that. On the Alpha, you can actually pull up 3 screens in a multiple view. So that's a big one. Or if you're trying to kind of get situational awareness on the regular view, and then you have the thermal on the side, which is great. Again, it has all of them have the obstacle avoidance stuff, the object tracking. I know a lot of people are concerned about sometimes encryption and data, and I won't get into that too much, but and again here it's the range is 12.4 miles on these drones, but I know with law enforcement and all the politics involved in drones that having your data secure is important, and Autel has a lot of good stuff they do. So mapping, geotagging, I kind of already talked about that stuff. As far as being IP rated, weather resistance, there's also anti-jamming features, and pretty reliable in hot and cold. Obviously, check which drone you're using to make sure. And this is, again, just kind of a visual. I'm happy to share this deck with you if you need it. Maybe you're trying to talk the boss into getting a thermal drone for whatever you're doing, and this has some good sources. Also useful if you're trying to buy Autel and you need something to share with your decision-making folks. So just real quick, what I like about Autel, the price point's great. It's a very feature-rich drone. I love the AI tracking and rangefinder stuff. With the rangefinder too, you can actually measure things from the air and select points and measure perimeters and things like that. The design is great. They store great in the cases. To bring up to say DJI, I would say that the Autels are just as good as the setting them up and putting them away kind of deal. Camera quality is awesome. Customizable menus is also cool. I haven't used too many drones that have this. I think Autel's got it nailed down where you can actually configure the layout of the controller. So as far as like, I want the menu to look like this or that. The controller size is great because it's big, but it's not too small. And again, the cases are awesome. So a good thing about Autel, no tariffs. It's a huge thing right now. So that's a big thing right now, especially for U.S. agencies that are getting banned also from certain products. So that's a big selling point. Obviously the thermal resolution and the rangefinder, the battery life is great. The Autel Alpha has hot swappable batteries. The other two that we're talking about do not. They have good support, and kind of the data and privacy stuff is great. And they've been at it for a while, so it's pretty well tested, tried and true. For mapping, I can show you guys a quick video. I was checking on my time here. When you're doing a mapping mission, you want to make sure you obviously configure your camera settings appropriately. Another cool thing that Autel does is that when you record a video, if it's you'll have it on thermal, but it's also recording a regular view. So when you dump the memory card, you can see both of those. Obviously mess with your ISO, shutter speed. I usually just leave it on default, but if you want to dial that in, you can test fly and kind of remember those settings. Your flight parameters, I think with thermal, it's kind of up to you what height you want to be at. Obviously, if you go down, they do have zoom, and thermal zoom is usually more limited than a regular zoom. So Obviously for mapping, you want to fly slower and to get, higher overlap too. Like if you're doing a mapping mission, I usually do like 80 overlap. Um, and most drones will do this where you can basically reproduce the mission. I talked about that where you're, pulling up older flights that you're doing all the time at the same time. Especially with mapping, this is nice because there's a lot more parameters that you need to plug in about the frequency of images and whatnot. The 640T, that's the little one I just showed you. I am giving you just kind of a price estimate. Keep in mind this stuff is constantly changing. If you get a proposal from anyone for drones and let it sit for a month or two, it could change. Tariffs can change. But this 640 by 512 is great, and it comes with in this set. We have different packages, but what's cool about this Evo Lite is I think it's probably one of the best thermal drones with a great price point. Because I think most thermal drones can usually get up to 8K, up to way more than that. And I do want to say that the portability is huge. So like I have a law enforcement agency in the Austin area that wants to get more of these because of the portability. They can't fit these big drones in their squad cars. So that's a good example. Or if you're a hunter and you got enough stuff going out there, fit it in a backpack. The Max 4T XE bundle is around $89.99. And again, that comes with that payload, and it's not an interchangeable payload. But again, a lot of these guys come with the same things, but some of the things like the gimbal capabilities, and always want to kind of check out if you're doing a spec comparison. This is the Alpha. The Alpha runs around 19,000-ish. And what's cool, it has an interchangeable payload. The zoom is incredible. I believe it goes up to 500x. It's very rugged for weather, and multiple batteries, and more tactical. It's a big one in search and rescue type deal. I would compare it to the M30T. The Nest is, if you're not familiar, this could really be, these are becoming more popular, especially if you want to set it up on your remote ranch and fly it from a computer. The drone basically launches itself and charges itself, and it's really a neat thing. Definitely, if you're in the market for something like that, let us know. And this is just kind of a comparison of the drone pricing. So I already kind of went through this, but just wanted to give you a visual, and you can kind of have a side by side. You can see that the thermals are 640 by 512. You can get the 7.9-inch screen, that's the bigger one. Yeah. So if you don't know about us, we provide you guys with or assistance to scale your drone program. We've done some webinars on that. We're on, trying to show organizations that are trying to figure out how they can use drones more effectively, whether it's surveying and mapping, LiDAR, public safety, all that good stuff. And, we've been in the business for a long time. So typically it's survey mapping, construction, inspection, like oil and gas, public utilities, public safety, law enforcement, border patrol, agriculture, and obviously cinematography. Just about us, we're employee owned. We're authorized dealer and repair center for DJI Autel and Inspired Flight. We have an office in Denver. That's our main office. I'm in Austin. We have a Dallas office. So yeah, basically we sell and service. We can help train, and we do training. We always do a first flight on your drone. So a lot of companies just drop ship it to you. You turn it on, it might not work, something's wrong. We do all that stuff, and it's faster because we're in direct with the dealers or with the OEMs. So we try to give you the best experience. You get the drone and it's all going and everything's great. And then again, we have support. We all answer our phones. We're very responsive. This slide I don't want to spend too much time on. I know we've got a few minutes. I do want to show you a couple videos. We may end a little early, but we'll see. But yeah, as far as implementing a drone to an organization, especially if they're new or you're trying to evaluate, we can help you figure out what's your mission? What do you need? We can kind of recommend what we recommend is, and side by side different drones for you. Help with, we're all licensed drone pilots. We can help kind of advise you. Also implementation and launch and ongoing support. So as far as training, typically we do online or in person. You can come see us in Denver if you want to see drones or, do some on-site stuff. I travel to locations and put on like fly days. We can do remote training and whatnot. So let's move on here to a couple videos, and I guess let me get my mouse going here. It goes to sleep on me. We will see here. Sorry, I'm a little slow today. Not sure where my thing went. It worked earlier. Here, let me do this. We'll just share my screen. So, sorry about that. First off. So this is actually just a shot of Austin. The quality of their cameras is really good. And they also have a non-thermal 640. There's also other Autel drones. They have other products. They have a Dragonfish, which is more of a fixed wing aircraft, if you will. Let's see here. And this is a shot. This was with the 640. Just the quality, filters, lens quality is there. Super fast. This day was really high winds. I want to say they were maybe 25, 30. It was pretty high winds you can just see kind of the stability of it. And get to some thermal stuff here. Whoops. So this is a mapping mission. And so it might look a little goofy or have some lag because of the internet, but basically what the drone's doing on a thermal mission, you're able to see the forward facing view, and then the gimbal's tilting down, it's pausing, and it's taking a shot and returning back up. So, for thermal mapping, you can also take those thermal images and put them into processing software like Pix4D. There's a lot of software options. Essentially what you're going to do is stitch all those thermal images together. I've done some cool mapping missions of like power substations where you can, essentially plug in all those data points. You can put them in some thermal processing software and do a lot more kind of data collection. There's a whole kind of science of thermal that you can go pretty deep. So I know that looks a little wonky there, but I'm really high up. I want to say I was about 300 feet, and I'm zooming it in just to kind of see. But I mean, you can see this particular location. I was just kind of amazed at how far away it picks up these animals and through the vegetation. This is in South Austin. And I think, is that it? Yeah, I guess that's it. Thought I had one more, but I don't. If you ever want to see some samples, I've got tons of stuff. I think that's it, and that leaves us 4 minutes for questions.
Awesome, Dan. Awesome presentation. We do have some questions coming through. Give me 1 second while I gather that. All right, ready?
Sure.
Can thermal sensors see through walls or windows?
Yeah, so they can. They do detect surface heat, but they can't see through walls, windows, or water. And by the way, fish, I think you can't see fish. I know that. But yeah, I mean, they can definitely see through brush and also fabrics, which I didn't know that until today.
But the movies showed say differently. I'm just kidding. All right, next question. How far can thermal payloads on a drone detect heat?
Say it. Oh,
How
how far
far
can they?
can you see
My
with a
bad. Sorry.
thermal payload?
Yeah. So it kind of depends, obviously. With the 640 by 512 on like the Evo, um, you can see animals as you could tell in that video, but 200, 300 feet in the air is, pretty good, especially for like fire. If it's something in vehicles, especially like you can see the engine of a car. Even when you zoom in on a car that's driving, you can actually see the heat trace on the pavement. So it's pretty incredible. And wait, yeah, I do want to take that back. I don't know if did I say that they can see through fabrics. I don't think you can like see through someone's clothes. I just don't want anyone to think that. You
You
can
see a
tell that
heat
there's heat
source,
there,
that's it.
but don't
Right.
get any ideas. I didn't tell you that.
All right. Okay, here's next question. What's the difference between a thermal payload and night vision?
Yeah. So, one of the thermals are more heat focused. So, obviously they both work in darkness. Night vision amplifies light, so it only works in low light, not zero light, and it'll struggle with smoky or foggy conditions. It's definitely something you can notice. So I think thermal's kind of more versatile, but yeah, that's kind of the main reasons for that.
All right, last question. How do Autel drones compare to DJI thermal drones?
So I would say that they're very comparable. In fact, I will go out and say that I think they are very comparable, as far as features and functions. And Autel definitely has, I think, a few things that a lot of people don't always consider, maybe because they just don't know Autel as well. They have some really neat cloud applications. They're constantly evolving. And when I say cloud applications, especially like law enforcement, they have, mesh flying. Essentially, to keep it quick, you can fly multiple drones, and you can basically the pilot can fly two drones, for example. The second person, which would potentially be the visual observer, can actually view on their controller. We should probably do a webinar on this, but it's they basically have the ability to be a viewer, and all that data too can stream into the cloud. So if a guy's on a cell phone getting a feed from the drone, the second guy that has the second controller, these two drones are flying in a pattern, and you can have them do different things. Can actually make marks on the map. So for law enforcement, maybe they're like, oh, the suspect, threw a bag out the window at this location and mark it and put a note. So there's just some really neat things like that that I'm not sure, DJI has all of those. So I think, and you also want to keep in mind the speed. All these drones have different speeds. For law enforcement, they want them to go as fast as they can. But yeah, I will say that Autel is definitely head to head with DJI. And one last thing I'm not sure I told you is that DJI is there's a lot of news and things going on with tariffs. Autel being tariff free also has drones manufactured in non-US locations. We actually have documentation to prove it. So a lot of agencies are hesitant or scared to get off DJI because so many drones are DJI. That's definitely something to think about, and you can have that conversation with your agencies or whoever's kind of against you, looking at some of these other brands, thinking that they're Chinese and they're not, or
We do have
maybe,
one
yeah.
last question coming from the audience. Which drone? I'm assuming he's asking Autel drone. Which one is more preferable in bad weather?
And say in bad weather,
Bad weather. Let's
yeah,
say
I
wet.
think you always want to look up the IP rating. And if you Google IP ratings, you can learn a little bit more about what they actually mean, as far as wind and rain and moisture. But I think from an IP rating, the better, the more enterprise drones are built, really like the Alpha or the M30T, um, to have an IP rating. Does that answer your question?
Let's see. I'm gonna look up the IP rating for the Autel Alpha, and that is IP55.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a pretty, I think that most drones, I'm not sure Teledyne makes a Cyrus FLIR drone, that's up there. And I think the Alpha and the M30T are up there. I'm not sure if the 640T has a high IP rating like that, but I'll have to look into that. Usually smaller drones or more kind of that are closer to like a consumer type drone. Um, Especially there's a lot of DJI that does not fly in the rain or other brands that you definitely want to be careful with that.
Sure. And then, so a quick Google search, the Evo Max series drones are IP43 rated. So the
Okay.
Alpha has more of a dust
Yeah,
rain resistant.
gotcha. Thanks for clarifying that.
Cool.
And
I think that
I did have one other thought. I have the DJI M4T. It, it it has AI tracking just like Autel, but DJI's AI tracking does not work in thermal, but Autel's does. So I really think this is a pretty neat feature, especially if you're tracking animals or suspects. I mean, just to have that, because when you're flying a drone and you're trying to use the gimbal and you're trying to zoom in on stuff, you're constantly battling with the drone to keep everything in focus. So having that, the gimbal's doing all the work for you, and you can actually drive and steer closer to the object. But the drone is actually following. A lot of people might not be used to this feature. It's a newer kind of feature and technology. So I think it's a huge part if you're looking at these drones. And Autel also has consistency across the board, as far as all the features and functions are available on all the different models. Some drone companies, they might charge a lot more extra for certain features, or so just keep that in mind.
I think that wraps it up.
All right. Well, thanks, Alex, and thanks everyone for attending. If you have any questions, let me know. Give us a call. Contact information is on the screen, and have a good rest of the day.